to... Why don't we do a rundown of some of the movies coming out in 2017, and I guess at certain intervals, when we get to certain movies, we might want to talk about them a little bit, because some of them are a little more interesting than others. We're not going to do every movie coming out, but these are some of the more notable ones coming out, like especially sequels. There's a lot of sequels coming out this year, as it turns out, so yeah, that creativity machine is really running.
Well, Chase, are they done with superhero movies? Are there any more of those coming out?
I'm glad you asked, because we got a whole trove more coming. I hope you people listening don't have superhero fatigue. I know I don't. So, today is January 20th, the inauguration day, of course, and a couple of movies actually came out today. A new movie that came out is Split. It's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. He still makes movies for some reason. And it's a thriller that stars James McAvoy, and he apparently has 23 personalities in the film.
Wait, what?
Moving on, we actually saw a couple of remakes and sequels earlier this month. Well, technically, yeah. We saw a new Underworld movie, which I'm sure gets you going.
Wait, Underworld, what's that?
Well, it's about miners. They're under the earth and whatnot, and it's kind of fascinating.
I can dig it.
So there was also a new Amityville movie. On the same day that Split has come out today, we've also seen the new XXX movie, The Return of Xander Cage, which we might have to do a review at some point looking at the trailers for the movie.
Isn't that the one where they're being chased they're driving cars and they're being chased by a submarine?
That's the new Fast and Furious movie. Which will be coming out later.
Oh, thanks.
Which we'll probably also have to see. Actually, it might be kind of interesting to do like a compare and contrast between those two movies.
I think so. We could probably do a shot-by-shot analysis.
Oh, by the way, a week from today, a new Resident Evil movie is coming out, if you still care about that.
What's that?
It's a movie based on a video game, which we just talked about.
Oh, yeah.
So, in February, we have the Lego Batman movie. Did you see the Lego movie, actually?
I did not.
I actually really like the Lego movie. It's a family movie, but it was pretty... I'm someone who grew up with a lot of Lego products and whatnot, so it really touched me at the heartstrings. This is specifically a Lego Batman movie, which has the potential to be the best Batman movie, I think.
Are they bringing back Matt Damon to play Batman?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Christopher Nolan is directing this. They're really taking the Lego series in a dark direction, I think. In terms of remakes and sequels, February 3rd, there's a new Rings movie. Actually, it's called Rings, but it's technically a sequel to The Ring.
Hold on a second. Are you sure it isn't a prequel? Because we've had the Hobbit films.
Maybe it's a soft reboot. In case... It's kind of like, what is it? When you break the glass, in case of emergency. In case of doubt, just go with soft reboot. That's kind of the philosophy these days.
So, by Rings, do you mean the franchise of The Ring, like Ringu in the original Japanese?
In Ju-on, yeah.
Ju-on. Okay.
So they're doing that. There are also, on February 10th, is going to be John Wick Chapter 2. Did you see John Wick?
I did not.
It's a pretty good movie. I actually really enjoyed it. It's a very good action movie. So, moving on to March, we have Beauty and the Beast, which is the live-action... Disney's going through this period where they're doing live-action versions of old Disney movies. There was a live-action Cinderella movie that came out in 2014, I believe. And this is going to be a live-action Beauty and the Beast movie starring Emma Watson, who we know from Harry Potter as Hermione.
This is actually not a bad idea for a franchise. I'd love to see a live-action Aladdin film or a live-action Lion King film.
I believe that some of those are coming, actually.
Well,
I've seen some comments, actually, that the Beast in this movie looks a little like a satanic statue in terms of his face and whatnot. Kind of goatish with the horns, and versus kind of the original Beast, which had more like a... I guess kid-friendly face, you might say.
Well, in the animated version from the 90s, that Beast had a big eye, small mouth sort of thing going on, but he did have horns.
Mm-hmm. Also in March will be Ghost in the Shell, starring Scarlett Johansson. That, of course, is kind of controversial because they're suggesting a white lady is playing what would be, I guess, cast as an Asian role in this way. They're talking about Hollywood whitewashing and whatnot.
Wait a second. This is a live action?
Yes, this is another live-action movie.
A live-action version of the anime.
Right, yes.
Okay.
We'll have to see how that goes. In terms of remakes and reboots, there's going to be Logan, which is the new Wolverine movie. I believe it's going to be the final Wolverine movie, actually. And I'm actually looking forward to this movie based on the trailers. If you've seen the trailer, or for anybody listening to this, it's actually set to Johnny Cash's song "Hurt," which is a cover of the Nine Inch Nails song. And I thought that was actually a really good choice for the trailer, which is really focusing a lot on Logan and Professor X and whatnot. It has a very apocalyptic sort of view of the world, I think, based on the trailers. It definitely looks like it's like a post-society. I almost get like a Mad Max feel when I see it. And it really seems to be honing in the relationship between Logan and the girl, which might be an influence from the video game The Last of Us, which kind of had that same dynamic of sort of the older grizzly guy and sort of the young girl who's trying to survive in the world. I don't know if they took an influence from that, but a lot of people have been comparing the two.
And I think that in this era of The Walking Dead, this post-apocalyptic type, Mad Max type, plus zombie type, a mixture is really going to be popular. And by the way, I'll say this, I'll include this at this point. There's been some talk about the reason why The Walking Dead Season 7, the violence has been toned down this season, is because of the bad fan reaction to the season premiere, in which several of the main characters are summarily executed by the villain of the show this season. And I have to say that it does seem like films are becoming a little more gritty, but a little less violent, if that makes any sense. Rogue One was a violent film, but you didn't see people suffer violence. With phasers and lightsabers, the violence itself is actually made less realistic, even though it's more pronounced.
I would argue that a lot of films and TV shows these days are kind of going into the more escapist route in terms of storytelling. That's kind of related to what you're saying. You compare that to some of the movies we've had in the past 10 years or so, where you had things like The Hurt Locker or American Sniper and whatnot. So a lot of these were sort of very realistic in terms of their depiction of the world and the grittiness of reality and whatnot. And those movies did very well at the box office. A lot of the movies we're seeing lately are tending to move more towards that escapist mentality. This is why we're seeing like a huge number of superhero films, for instance. So I think that kind of relates to what you're saying there.
Right. And again, most of these films are converging around the idea of being a comic book, which is ironic because Rogue One along these lines would have been a gritty comic book, but it's still a comic book.
So on March 10th, there's going to be Kong Skull Island, which you and I have discussed in previous podcasts. On March 24th, there's going to be the long-awaited Power Rangers movie, starring Bryan Cranston as Zordon.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah, we might have to do something with that, too. Here's the thing, there's a lot of movies coming out that you and I might have to do a review of some type on, because a lot of them sound pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if they're going to get Mike from Breaking Bad and have him play the Green Ranger at this point. But by the way, can I throw out there that I just saw the actor who played Mike? What is his name? I forget the actor's name who plays the character of Mike on Breaking Bad. Grossner or something like that. Grodenchek. No, that's someone else. Anyway, on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, I was watching this episode in the early seasons in which it was the first season episode in which Kai Opaka, the original Kai in the show Star Trek Deep Space Nine, she is taken by Cisco to this planet in the Gamma Quadrant, and there are these two factions who are fighting each other, and there's these little nanite robots that are keeping them alive. The people kill each other off, and the little robots bring them back to life. And anyway, the leader of one of these bands is the guy who plays Mike on Breaking Bad. And the reason I couldn't tell at first is because he has hair, and they have a wig on him, and he's 20 years younger. But go back and watch that film, by the way. At some point, we're going to have to do an intertextual analysis of some of these shows and see where some of these Star Trek actors end up. But a lot of folks got their initial start on some of these shows from the 90s, including, by the way, Bryan Cranston, who showed up on The X-Files, and then ended up on Breaking Bad also.
So, moving on, in April, of course, we know that April is the month of comedy. So, on April 7th, there's going to be a new Smurfs movie, because we were all clamoring for that.
I was holding my breath. I was turning blue, waiting for that one.
But the actual peak of comedy will be April 14th, when The Fate of the Furious comes out. Sam, we saw the trailer for this, I believe, before Rogue One, right?
I think so.
And I believe that you and I were sold on this film as soon as we saw them driving on the Arctic ice away from a submarine.
That's the submarine film.
Yeah, so we're going to have to see that movie, I think.
Yeah, and that's number 8. Which means, by the way, I've got the first 7 Fast and the Furious films on DVD, My wife and I have watched 2 of these, so we've only got 5 more films to go before April. Oh no.
So May is going to be kind of a busy month in terms of the cinema. On May 5th, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 comes out, which I am legitimately looking forward to.
Yeah, no joke. I'm really looking forward to this. There are very few moments in my life in terms of cinema that I can really say that was a great time. I've had fun in a lot of these films, but seeing the original Guardians of the Galaxy in the cinema, for me, was the equivalent of watching the re-release in 1997 of the original Star Wars films in the theaters. And it's that sort of communal type experience in which people go because they like the film. It's a packed house, very popular, everybody laughs, and it has a great soundtrack that every time you listen to reminds you of the film.
It's just a really well done film altogether.
Very well done. You forget that it's a comic book film and you think it's a Star Wars film until you realize that Star Wars films are now comic books.
Well, you realize watching a film like Guardians of the Galaxy is that the main purpose of a movie is to entertain the audience, and that's what it really does well. You know, my mom, who's not even like a big comic book fan and whatnot, she really loved Guardians of the Galaxy so much that she bought the DVD and also bought the soundtrack after she watched the movie.
Wow.
So, yeah, and the soundtrack was, of course, very popular when it came out.
And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't purchased the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, do yourself a favor and do it. In fact, probably if you ask your friends, somebody already has it. It's that popular of a soundtrack, and it's Americana music, by the way. And I hate to bring this up as a positive example, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, the one in which they go back in time, they actually recycle a lot of Americana music, and that's a bad film, but I have to say this, it had a great soundtrack. So a film can be bad and have a good soundtrack. Forrest Gump was one of those films.
We saw that with Suicide Squad.
Well, yeah. I was going to say, well, that's a negative example. Forrest Gump would be a positive example where the film is good and the soundtrack is good. But Americana films in which we recycle music that everyone already knows and it's already ringing in our ears, and we're just waiting to see it brought into the cinema. It's that sort of music. And I'm really hoping that the sequel, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, keeps paying that forward, and I'll really be disappointed if they don't have some sort of musical score that's Americana.
So in terms of the other films in May, we have on May 19th, Baywatch, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, because they decided to make a Baywatch movie.
No thanks.
On May 19th also, there will be Alien Covenant, which is going to be the sequel to Prometheus.
Wait a second. That's in the Aliens trilogy, right?
Yes. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a trilogy, is it?
Well, I use the term trilogy in an expanded sense since most of these films broke out of trilogies years ago anyway.
Right. So I'm kind of interested in seeing this. I don't know how you thought. Did you watch Prometheus?
I haven't seen Prometheus. Of course, then again, I still haven't seen Aliens. I just need to watch these films. Maybe we can watch them in order of release or something sometime, and you can actually explain to me what's going on.
Well, speaking of movies that I'm not really familiar with, on May 26th, there's going to be the new Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Dead Men Tell No Tales. I'm actually not that up-to-date on the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I haven't really watched a whole lot of them. I know that you're probably more familiar with them than I am.
I liked the first 3. The first 3 ended with, spoiler alert, the somewhat death of some of the main characters, so they're gone. The 4th film was ridiculous. It was about evil mermaids, if I remember right, kind of forgettable CGI evil mermaids. I'm really hoping that they bring back some sort of characters for Jack Sparrow to mingle with whom he can annoy, because that was always the strength of Jack Sparrow's character, as we talked about before. It wasn't about him being the central character, the protagonist, but about really annoying and assaulting the minds of the protagonists in the film. So we need somebody who's substantial in that role. If they're going to have a trilogy of films, a new trilogy, they need to have some supporting cast that makes it work. But I hope they do. I really hope number 5 is the way they turn around the franchise.
Well, the busiest month of this year is probably going to be June. So on June 2nd is going to be the Wonder Woman movie. That's going to be like the Justice movie that's going to be coming out later this year. This is probably going to be a pivotal moment in terms of DC movies. They haven't really been getting as much from the box office as they've been wanting from these past few films. And it's going to be interesting to see how Wonder Woman and Justice League both try to meet the expectations and how they're going to try and do things differently from the last few offerings that DC has given us.
So Wonder Woman comes out first. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to Wonder Woman. I'd like to see her character, like I said earlier, established more and given more context. The flashbacks in the Batman v Superman movie just weren't enough for me. And I was really looking for that for this character, so I'll be eager to see what they do.
Well, what's interesting is that they actually touched on the World War aspect of Wonder Woman and Batman v Superman. You kind of saw this on the photos, right, with her and the old soldiers and whatnot.
Well, right.
And this movie is actually going to be set during that time, so it's actually going to elaborate on what the story is behind those photos that were in Batman v Superman, which is kind of an interesting way of handling it.
Yeah.
So, in terms of remakes and sequels, on June 9th, there's going to be the new Mummy movie starring Tom Cruise.
Well, wait a second. So this isn't a Brendan Fraser film?
I think, to be honest, that this is a soft reboot.
Is this a reboot of... Wait a minute. There's so many Mummy films. It's like, if they start bringing in...
By the way, ironically, I don't think Dwayne Johnson is in this movie, even though he's in, like, every other movie, but... Yeah,
because they brought him in as the Scorpion King, right?
Right, and that became its own thing.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to see this, to be honest with you.
Well, I was going to say, it'll probably come straight to Netflix afterward and then probably get ignored.
So, speaking of other sequels, there's a lot this month. On that same day that The Mummy comes out, there's going to be World War Z 2. I don't know if you saw the Brad Pitt World War Z movie.
Shouldn't the sequel be called World ZZZZZ?
World ZZ Top?
Yeah, I saw the original one. It wasn't bad. The CGI effects were a little over the top. A tidal wave of zombies I could have done without, but at the same time it did feel like a good things are at stake, the world is at risk sort of film. So yeah, I'd like to see where the second one goes.
Yeah. On June 16th, Cars 3, because there's going to be a new Cars movie, I guess. On June 23rd, we have the long-anticipated Transformers: The Last Night, the movie that sold me in the theater when I saw the trailer and that there are Nazi robotic dragons in it.
What do you do with that?
Apparently, there's not only Nazis in the film, there's also going to be King Arthur, which is ironic because there's going to be a King Arthur movie coming out in 2017. So I don't know if this is going to be like they're going in time and doing a historical thing. I think it's going to be hilariously schlocky, and I don't know. We're going to have to do something with this.
But the first time I saw a film in this franchise of the Transformer films, the new versions, I thought my biggest compliment for this is going to also be my biggest complaint. A big whirling ball of metal mess. And that's been my review for each of these films. Except, of course, for the best one, which is 1986, the animated version.
So on June 30th, there's also going to be Despicable Me 3, which basically... I'm kind of tired of Minions, you know? Minions have basically become the go-to meme for a lot of people on Facebook. And...
Wait. Those are the things like Twinkies with eyeballs?
Yeah. The Minions actually originated from the Despicable Me films, and then they became their own thing with the Minions film. I don't know why they're doing Despicable Me 3. They might as well just do Minions 2.
Yeah, isn't it the same thing at this point?
So moving on to July, after that kind of explosive June month, we have July 7th, Spider-Man Homecoming, which is going to be a fascinating film to watch, I think. It's going to be fascinating because this is, the third reboot of Spider-Man in a decade?
So Marissa Tomei is playing Aunt May?
She's Aunt May, yeah.
That's interesting. And of course, there was a little lamp shading in the previous Marvel film about this, right?
Right.
You know, I will say this. It will be interesting to see Iron Man and Spider-Man together in their film as a matchup. I think that it's long overdue. Those two characters have so much in common in terms of their interests as characters and what they do and their personality types. It'll be fun. And I'd like to see a superhero movie that just looks fun.
Yeah, and for some reason Aunt May keeps getting younger and younger in these films, so she's like...
Wait, did you say Ant-Man?
Maybe. Aunt May might be in the film.
Aunt May, Ant-Man. It sounds similar. Yeah.
And Michael Keaton will be in the film playing Birdman. The Vulture.
How'd you make that confusion?
That'll be interesting. Michael Keaton is actually in a couple different films this year.
Yeah.
On July 21st, we have Dunkirk. It's actually a movie I'm looking forward to. It's Christopher Nolan's first blockbuster since Interstellar. It stars Tom Hardy and Harry Styles, and it's about the evacuation of Dunkirk back in 1940. So it's going to be like a more historical film instead of like... It's going to be a blockbuster film based on history, which is interesting for a Nolan-type film. He's used to doing like things like Batman and these sci-fi films, and it'll be interesting to see what he does in terms of a historical drama.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that old Matt Damon film, Pearl Harbor.
So on July 28th, there's going to be The Dark Tower. For any of you who are Stephen King fans, this is an adaptation of the first book in the series based on that. It stars Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if you're that familiar with the Dark Tower series or not, but
Didn't he write some of those books under his pen name?
I believe so, yeah.
Richard...
It was first published in 1982, so...
Yeah.
And in July, in terms of a sequel, there's going to be War for the Planet of the Apes. Have you watched any of the new Planet of the Apes films?
Okay, so we saw the second new one, and then in the theater, and it was fine. And then we bought the first one on one of our streaming services and haven't watched it yet. And of course, years ago I saw some of the originals. I'm so muddled about what's going on and with who and what, but again, this is another one of those franchises where I think I'd get a lot more out of it if I watched it again from the beginning.
Yeah, I can see that. I actually really like the new Planet of the Apes films, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do with this one. Actually, what's really fascinating, at least in the second one for me, is like how much the apes in the movie are actual characters. So, you have Caesar, who's the main ape, basically, and you have the other ape, I forget his name, the antagonist ape in the second movie.
Right.
And it's like, part of that movie is actually the relationship between those two, and it's kind of interesting that they were willing to make something a little compelling out of basically two apes as characters.
Well, right, and this is actually the second reboot of Planet of the Apes as a franchise. The first one was the Mark Wahlberg version around 99-2000. I actually liked that one, and I wondered why they couldn't turn that into a franchise, and then I realized, it's because it's a Mark Wahlberg version, and he's not really available for these films anymore. That said, I do like the direction where the second one started, and the conflict between the apes and the humans.
Plus, how can you not like a movie that has apes riding horses with guns?
Yeah, they got me. As soon as I saw the ape holding the machine gun, riding the horse, jumping through the fire, I thought, that's it, I'm done. My brain is gone. I'm just going to enjoy this. And it was fun at that point.
Sam.
Well, what?
We're not done with August.
Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of got lost there for a minute. Am I alive? Is Bill Clinton still president?
Actually, we're going to talk about Annabelle 2.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe we don't have to. So let's move on to September.
Okay.
In September, there's going to be not much. In fact...
Lego Ninjago?
It's Ninja Lego stuff. So there's going to be... Actually, that's kind of weird, isn't it? There's going to be 2 Lego movies next year.
Yeah, one is from a character with Killer Instinct. Ninjago?
That's true, yeah. The American Ninjago, as it turns out.
Oh, I see.
It's going to be a canon film. So let's go to October. October 6th, we have Blade Runner 2049. So this is going to be the Blade Runner sequel, fascinatingly enough, starring Ryan Gosling. And the premise of the movie is that Ryan Gosling is a new Blade Runner, and he's searching for Rick Deckard, Harrison Ford's character from the original movie. So I don't think Blade Runner is a movie that necessarily needed a sequel, although this movie is actually directed by Denis Villeneuve, I guess is how you pronounce his name, who did Arrival, actually, which is probably one of my favorite movies of 2016. So this movie might have some things going for it. I don't know.
Well, where's Ridley Scott?
He's not directing the movie.
Is Harrison Ford going to be attached to this?
Yes, he's part of the plot, I suppose.
Well, I'm assuming that they're not going to bring in a CGI Harrison Ford.
Speaking of uncanny, let's go to October 27th. 2017 Cloverfield movie. We don't know what it is yet. So we had the original 2008 Cloverfield. And then 2016 we had 10 Cloverfield Lane, which got pretty good reviews. I actually never saw this.
I never saw either of those.
But I heard good things about it. So maybe we'll have to go back and rewatch those 2 films.
If they have a fourth one, would it be a four-leaf Cloverfield film?
I think they would have to have 4 films, right? Just to do the motif.
Right.
So, and also in October, we've got Insidious Chapter 4, because there's a new Insidious movie. There's horror.
What's that?
It's horror. And we also, October 27th, Saw Legacy. We need a new Saw film.
No, we don't. We didn't need the first one.
Let's go on to November. November 3rd, Thor Ragnarok. This is actually kind of interesting. Apparently, They describe this as a buddy film. Like it's a Thor film, but it's starring Thor and the Hulk, which is interesting. We haven't seen a solo Hulk film yet, so this is kind of integrating them both.
Is this the one where he hits his hand and he hits a Thor thumb?
Thor thumb.
Actually, I wouldn't mind if this is actually the Hulk planet. You know, the Hulk
Planet
world.
Hulk.
Planet Hulk, yeah. If they do that with
Actually,
Thor.
from what I read, they were actually integrating elements of that into the film.
It's on Netflix right now. They have an animated version of Planet Hulk, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I haven't seen but the first 2 minutes of it. I saw the part where Iron Man is like apologizing to Hulk for having to shoot him out into outer space away from everybody.
Planet Hulk's a good storyline. It's very funny.
Yeah.
But to continue the superhero theme, on November 17th, we have the Justice League, which we talked about earlier.
No Injustice League, no peace.
It's got Superman and Batman and the Flash and the Wonder Woman and the Aquaman and the villain, which we don't know yet. And it's going to be a DC film, and it's going to make a good amount of money, and it's not going to be Batman versus Superman.
Well, let me ask you, what about the Aquaman franchise? Is the Aquaman film going to be out before this, or is it after?
No, it's coming after, as is the Flash movie.
That will do swimmingly.
You know what? Aquaman doesn't need your sass. So, moving on.
Hey, if I happen to go to SeaWorld, I would be very terrified if I were a supervillain that Aquaman would come and fight me there. But other than that, just stay away from the water and you're fine.
I want her to die because Luke Skywalker is actually secretly evil, and he turns almost Joker-esque since he's Mark Hamill, and he kills her in training, which would be a stark contrast to Yoda training Luke.
It'd be like the antithesis of the Yoda training. Well, do you think that Luke is actually secretly evil? Is he really on the dark side?
I don't know how to read him right now, because the thing is, they just killed off Harrison Ford. Spoilers alert, but who cares? The movie's been out for a long time. And I think that kind of gets rid of the hermit kind of character, kind of the wise old man that's meant to be there as a guiding force in the lives of the hero and whatnot. I don't know if Luke is going to be that character. From what I've seen so far, this movie is kind of playing by the numbers. Well, what I mean is that The Force Awakens played by the numbers. It didn't really do anything too drastic. It had very, limited characterization and whatnot. We'll see if this takes a different direction, but I don't really know what to say.
Well, Han Solo basically played the Obi-Wan character in The Force Awakens.
That's what I was getting at, yeah.
Which was a little bit of a type mismatch, and he was kind of miscast in the role, because Han Solo is not Obi-Wan. He can be the wise, older scoundrel, but you have to still make him a scoundrel. And he wasn't a scoundrel. He was just some guy. So yeah, I really would like some sort of twist where it turns out that Luke Skywalker is now... Because we have to have some sort of substance that connects this back to the original franchise. Because there really wasn't much of that. It's kind of like grafting a red arm on C-3PO. You can do it, but then you have to explain the relevance and why this is necessary.
Well, are they ever going to explain the lightsaber? Can we point out that the lightsaber that Rey uses was the original lightsaber that Anakin used and gave to Luke, correct?
Right.
So that means that this lightsaber is the one that Luke lost at Bespin when he fought Vader, and that flew into the clouds.
Right.
So are they going to explain how he got the lightsaber or not?
Well, are they going to say that they found his severed arm at the same time? And does the severed arm of Luke Skywalker still have magical force power to it also? And is that going to become an artifact in the next
Because
film?
I thought that Bespin was just a gas planet, right? There's no solid surface to it. So
Right. Wouldn't it have flown out into space, going through the other side of the planet or something? No, of course, they're not going to explain anything. I mean, that's the thing. They're trying to
They just want to make
establish-
references.
Yeah, it's all going to be this postmodern idea of having no substance and only surfaces. And they want to be able to have lightsabers without explaining, except for the fact that they're Folgers crystals. Kyber crystals. That's it.
Well, they're crystals that can speak to you.
Right. And they can call out to people, and all of a sudden...
Because now we have sentient weapon tropes, because that's what Star Wars needed.
Yeah, maybe it's the midichlorians doing it.
We got one more movie. That's December 22nd, the day before my birthday. They decide to grace the world with a Jumanji reboot starring Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart. Because every movie needs Dwayne Johnson now.
Yeah.
Do we need this?
Especially kids' movies. I think The Rock should be in all kids' movies. Hey, wait a second. So there's no movies on Christmas Day opening?
There is. It's The Greatest Showman, starring Hugh Jackman.
Oh.
It's about circuses.
Which, by the way, we'll have to point out that politics...
Which seems kind of appropriate.
The Ringling brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, just closed after some 140 years.
Actually, this movie is actually about P.T. Barnum. It's a biopic, and it's a musical.
Wow, this is intense.
Wait, this is a musical? Are we going to do like a yearly musical like La La Land and whatnot now?
Well, they did do Les Mis around the winter time one year, I think, so... I think you're right. I think that the holiday musical is back in force. Going all the way back to Irving Berlin's White Christmas.
No comment on that. So that was our 2017 movie discussion. We also had a 2016 movie discussion that was a lot longer. We hope you all enjoyed listening to this overly long podcast. Yeah, Sam is falling asleep right here, and I'm getting progressively more bored. We'll see you guys next time, where we'll actually do some of the stuff we promised in the past. We'll do some Star Trek, and we'll also do some Farms and Factories. I'm saying this right now, so that way we actually... you will hold our feet to the fire, and we'll actually do it.
Am I dreaming? Is Bob Dole still president?
Okay, guys, stop listening.
Bye.